because the Italians can always speak, because only 20% of Italians can communicate in English, but they can always communicate with other Southerners like Spanish and Portuguese. So it's not really a problem. The only problem among the nations which are not speaking English very often, it's the Hungarian case, because the Hungarians, they really, if someone has to learn some foreign languages, it's Hungarians, but Hungarians don't do it. The Italian style of being on strike, it's also suggests that this is the land and the nation of compromise. They're sort of working, but sort of not working in the same way. They are the strike Italian type, being on strike Italian type. That means that you are working, but you are working very slowly. So you are not effective in your work. You are very ineffective. But this, so this is the we can see that this is the land of piccola combinazione and of compromise. That the Italian was very often occupied by Austrians or Spaniards, and they had to pretend that they are 100% on some side, whereas they were, of course, as all people are, on their own side. So they had to pretend. So they had to sort of work for the occupants, but sort of not. In the same time, to have their own interests put through. So the Italian style being a strike is, I think, one of these elements. The Italians had to be very flexible, so they have changed fronts from time to time. In World War I, for instance, as I mentioned, they changed front. They don't have problems with this. In 1943, they had no reason to support Mussolini. They never did in a huge number. In a huge percentage supported Mussolini, because Mussolini was to some extent a very German-like figure in Italian history. He spoke German very well, he was a teacher, he was a modernist, he wanted to change Italy from a nation of artists to a nation of soldiers. He had perceived the Italian history as something very bringing not with something that bring shame to Italians, because they were working, they were trying to, they have built practically as architects and as engineers and as normal workers. They helped to build Vienna, for instance, but at the same time Italian cities looked like shit. So that was a problem, right? So he wanted the Italians to be soldiers, to be strong, like ancient Rome, strong, but he forgot that the ancient Rome was a combination of various nations, like Iberians also, for instance, and the people from Gaul and so on. So it was not just another ancient form of Italy, it was another nation, and if we can call that a nation, a Roman nation even, it's not so sure. Italians have problems with mammismo, the tendency of listening only to what the mom is saying, to ignoring the voice of the wife, for instance, or the other part, the other members of family. The mammismo is a problem, but can also be beneficial in some situations, as most human things can be both negative and positive in a context. In a different situation. For instance, now when there is an economical crisis in the Southern Europe from the reasons I've already mentioned, mammismo is really holding those families together, and it's helping to go through this very hard phase. The Italians also have this tendency to combine tradition and modernity. They have 1/4 of all ancient buildings which are considered historical monuments. Here I put combined the UNESCO monuments and the normal historical monuments. When I put it together, it's like 1/4 of all the historic monuments in the whole world is in Italy. And almost half of the monuments in Europe is in Italy. So Italy is very dominated by ancient good buildings, good architectural structures that have were doing fine for ages. So it's like the mamismo, it's strong family, so it's a strong architecture. Italian